The Silver Screen Project.
Welcome to the Silver Screen Project, where we look back at a series of films in anticipation of an exciting new cinema release.
In preparation for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, we went back and watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, and now we watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Ooh.
Doom!
Doom.
What did you think of Temple of Doom?
Yeah, I mean, I came into this thinking I wasn't really going to enjoy it because I know that the general consensus is it's kind of the sag of the kind of original trilogy.
Yeah.
And I kind of stand by that. Like, I can see that kind of view, but I enjoyed more of this than I thought I was. Like, I still think the story's a little bit weak and it does sag in the middle of this film. It's a little bit slow at times, but there's some really good action points and I think there's some fun characters, Short Round particularly. Yeah, what did you think?
It's the same. Like, you kind of always see it as the lesser of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed it. It's obviously not as good as the first one. I've got more like negatives to do with it.
Yeah.
But it is still like a really good film. Like it's still, I see it held in high regard.
Yeah.
It's just that compared to, the one before, it's hard to match that because that's such a great film.
Yeah, I was thinking like one of the only good things it did is introduce Kihei Kwan to the world. It's like, well, actually, no. After watching it, I was like, no, I'm actually enjoying it.
Yeah,
I think one of the things like overall, before we go into kind of general positives and negatives, I think looking at it as it finished, I think because it's set in almost one location, there's the intro and then there's kind of the main locale at least.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that really sets it apart from the others because they're normally a bit more globe-trotting and there's a couple of the bits with the plane and the map and all that. And that's one of the things that makes it feel quite different, which I think is an intentional thing.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like an adventure he finds himself on rather than someone coming to him and going, go sort this thing out.
I think they kind of limited themselves by making it a prequel to the first one.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I think they said they didn't want to just have the Nazis as the villains again.
I think that's the whole point.
So the only way they could do that was to set it earlier. But if you're setting it earlier, you're
limiting the scope of it a little bit.
To make it easier for yourself, it's like let's just hold it in one location.
I mean, I think I've heard somewhere that the opening I do really like, and I think it's supposed to be like the tail end of another adventure, and it's kind of like he's having these back-to-back adventures, gives the image that he's just always off doing stuff when he's having travels. I think that intro is really fun, and I know that Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie around this time, and you can really feel that.
I wrote that opening scene is like so clearly like a tribute to James Bond. Even like the suit he's wearing and the setting is, and then I think even like a bit after that where the plane is going down, they jump out with the raft.
Yes,
is very James Bond as well. Landing on that and then going like down the mountain. I think
all of that, the intro up until even like the village part, I think is quite interesting. Where there's this kind of mystery. It's a bit weird. They leave the kids being missing until like the last thing. They're like, so our stone got stolen and this and the kids can. But yeah, I like that, and I think it's around the kind of palace bit that it kind of slows down for me. Even some of the mine bits, I know we're doing positive negatives, but yeah, the intro I think is really strong, and I think that whole bit in China is really good. We get the introduction of Short Round, fantastic character, very good fun. I was doing some reading. I don't know how much trivia you've got, but Kihei Kwan was there with his brother who was auditioning or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Yeah.
And he was like coaching his brother so much. Yeah. They were like, why don't you just do it?
And the card scene where he accuses Indy of cheating was the little improv scene that they worked out as the...
Right. Actually, on Short Round is so much fun in this. And like that scene in particular, like some of his lines, I wrote down the bit where he says, I'm very little, you big cheat. And it's like, it's just so many lines like that. And like, he's just so funny. And
he's really good.
I think because we'll talk about Willie a bit later on.
Yeah.
Because like Marion was a great companion in the first one. I think because Willie's weaker in this, it really helps that Short Round is there.
Yeah, I think if Short Round wasn't in this, it would be a way worse film.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely would be.
And I think it's one of those things that I think you can't like, I think it's an example how films have changed over the last 40 years. Because if this came out now, people would be like, "Who's this short round kid? Why is he there? Why is he friends with Indy? What's his backstory?" And it's like, actually, we don't need to know any of that. He's just there.
They say he was begging. He tried to pick my pocket, and then he now helps me out when I'm in that part of the world.
And
whatever.
that's like enough. That's all we need to know.
Exactly. And we don't even. It is strange that this character never gets picked up again. I don't know if maybe they'll do something in the new one. Maybe
I've got a gut feeling that he's gonna pop up in Dial of Destiny.
Do you think it will be the same actor playing him?
Yeah, well,
I think he'll be too old to play him because based on where they are, I don't know when the new one's set, like the 60s.
Yeah, well,
I guess that kind of works then, doesn't it?
He's aged at the same rate Harrison Ford has.
But they're pretending Harrison Ford's about 20 years younger than he is, I think. I'm not really sure about the new one. But yeah, I think he's a real like bright spot of the film, and like there's some really good moments like when Indy's like brainwashed and Short Round's just like really pleading with him, and it's like that's quite like a emotional moment considering the film gets kind of dark and it's got a darker tone, but I think that's probably the real moment that's like heartfelt kind of
and
thing.
There's multiple moments in this where Short Round does like save the day. Like there's the bit where Indy's on the like thing getting beaten up because he's got the knife in his back, and it's Short Round who like goes and kicks
I love that bit. It's so
good. The ruler guy,
and the big guy that he fights is the same actor as the big guy that he fought in the first one, although he's pretending to be an Indian man in this.
I think the music is still great. Like like I think the first one's so iconic, it's kind of hard to reach that level, but the new music used for this is great, and then reusing the actual like Indiana Jones theme, it fits in there perfectly, and it's like John Williams is a genius.
It does that slightly darker kind of tone. Some of the music in this really reminded me of the Mandalorian theme. I don't know if that's a through line through, but yeah, there's that similar kind of vibe at times there. But music's really good. Like all the sacrifice stuff, I think is pretty good because it really is that darker tone.
Yeah,
Kalima and all that.
I remember like when I was a kid, the whole Kalima thing was like just such. I think it was probably the thing I knew best from Indiana Jones, along with like the hat grab, which we see again in this, and like the boulder. Like I remember me and my brother always like chasing each other, going Kalima, and like it's like he rips his heart out and he's still alive, and it's like because this world is magic.
Which that's a little bit silly that Indiana Jones has seen enough magic in this film to at least slightly believe in it, but it's the whole skeptical thing, which I guess is kind of like his Han Solo character as well, who's just like, it's just all bullshit. It's just like he's very skeptical kind of character.
I think like the first one as well, there's some really fun like action pieces in this. I think
that's some of the strongest stuff in this is the action.
Even like the spike room that him and Short Round are trapped in is good fun, whilst Willie's trying to save them,
attempting to do
something, and then like the whole like cart chase around the thing is just so much fun.
It's really good. It looks really good. There's a couple of moments where I've seen like analysis and they use little miniatures and stuff like that to get like the big caves,
and then obviously the bridge at the end is great with them like wrapping themselves around and then cutting it. It's great. I think
crocodiles.
Although the crocodiles look fucking terrible.
You can tell they've just thrown some clothes next to the crocodiles and got them to just jump around.
Always kind of stood out to me. I mean, I've got that as a negative, but we'll talk about it. Because like this is Steven Spielberg making this, and like so much of this film looks so good and is so well made. It's so weird that looks so bad.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I guess even just some like dummies would have worked. It is just literally clothes and meat and like fake blood, I think.
And you never once believe that they're at the bottom of that canyon.
No, true. Yeah, there's points. I think there's even points when like they're at risk of falling and you can see down, and I don't think there's anything at the bottom.
No,
it's just water.
It's such a weird
and the
thing.
guy, when he falls, the bad guy, he like bounces really far out to go because there's rocks and instead it's all a bit silly, but it's in that kind of vein of we spoke about last time, like the kind of serialized adventure films, and it's all supposed to be a bit silly and all that. Like even like the British Army will arriving just at the end to have the like red versus blue battle. Like it's all very silly, but it just kind of it works for it works, isn't it?
And it, like you mentioned, it is creepier than the first one, and like the whole like the ceremony and stuff is creepy, and the fact that there's guys like sneaking around this temple.
Yes, like the part
creepy.
where I quite like, although, we will talk about the Willie character in a little bit, but I do like that bit where they're kind of like aggressively flirting with each other. I think that's quite a fun bit because we know that Indy's kind of this like bit of a dog, and he's like a bit of a James Bond kind of sleeping around all his adventures from what we hear in the first one, we know about Marion and stuff. So it's quite fun to see that. He's like not even really trying, and it's just like women just can't resist it. It's just like, oh yeah, and then we see the guy like going through the secret passages or something, isn't it? Yeah, all that's
it's all good fun, and like all like the creepy crawlies and stuff. Obviously the first one we had like the snakes and stuff. Now we've got
go way in on the like
thousands of insects.
Which I think I was listening to something where they were talking about the experience filming, and apparently I can't remember the name of the actress who plays Willie, but she had to do like she had to learn like deep breathing meditative techniques to have all these bugs on her and stuff because she was so like terrified of them crawling in her hair and that sort of thing.
Although I think a lot of them are like computer effects.
Right, okay.
Like they're not all practical.
No, I think there's just certain bits.
Kate Capshaw, who a few years later would marry Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, well that's one of the things that people always say about why the film has quite a kind of gloomy view and why the female lead is a little bit annoying, which I don't know if you want to move into that yet, is because both George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were both going through divorces when they were writing and creating this. So there's a certain kind of air, I don't want to say an air of misogyny there, but there's a negative view of relationships in it. And I think that's kind of...
And I think she said as well that like she hated that character and hated doing that.
And it's supposed to be a kind of antithesis to Marion, who is really like capable and able to look after herself. It is supposed to be. Should we talk about her a little bit now, then?
Like she is just like really annoying, and like she is just that classic like you like from like 50s films of just like blonde woman who just screams a lot.
Yeah,
she's got no character development.
She constantly screams. She hates being outside. She hates being wet. She hates bugs. She complains.
There's no like positive
all the
characteristics.
time. Yeah, it's really annoying.
It's also kind of weird how she becomes part of the adventure, because obviously she's working at the Chinese club.
Yeah, I like the opening bit where she does the song. That's good. Yeah.
Indy like holds her hostage and takes her, and then she just kind of never leaves his side.
No, she's just kind of on board. I think it's partly because the Chinese mobster is like, just kill her, it's fine. So she's like, well, I'm not like...
I guess I'll just have to go with the strong male figure that I'm near.
And that whole bit, I said I like the flirting bit, but she goes from like absolutely hating him to like wanting him to come sleep with her. So there's no like...
There's no depth to that character whatsoever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it like you say, it's so disappointing because Marion is such a fun character. Yeah. So it's almost like they've taken a step back.
Yeah. And I think they could have done it. I mean, even like the way that the third one goes is a different take on the female lead. And that.
Yeah.
But I think this, you say, is too far back. Yeah. But I mean, was there any other good bits you wanted to go through?
I like the bit where there's the callback to the guns and the swords, where there's two guys swinging the swords around, and he goes to get his gun and shoot them, but he doesn't have it in the holster, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And I was like, I like that. There's a few callbacks to the first film, and we mentioned the hat and stuff, and it's like, this is fun. I think we basically mentioned all the main bits
I do like, although this kind of goes into negatives, so a lot of the film with the kids and stuff, there's a kind of white savior thing going on there in a lot of ways, but the scene where all the kids get reunited with their parents is quite cute. It's quite nice, heartwarming and everything, so it's kind of a good and bad there.
I read that the like village chief guy, apparently he couldn't speak a word of English. They would just tell him his lines and he'd just repeat it like phonetically. I mean, you kind of get that vibe. He had no idea what he was saying.
I think he's pretty good. I tried to look up. I didn't look too hard. I just did a couple of quick searches. The kid that escapes and comes and finds comes there in the night before they leave, who looks like completely malnourished. I was trying to find out what happened with that kid. Was this like a real starving kid? I couldn't find anything because he looks like fucked. So I have no idea what that's
they
about.
Just went to a local village and
you're the skinniest kid. Come pretend to die.
Talking about like going into more negative sides. I think there's a bit towards the end where it just kind of the last probably not right at the end, but it seems to just go from like action set piece to different locations. So like it's got the whole spike trap, and then suddenly they're at the ceremony, and then suddenly there's the big fight, and then suddenly it's the car, and it's like they're just kind of jumping from thing to thing, and they don't really seem too connected.
I think from like pretty much from maybe the spike bit, or maybe even a little bit before that, to like when Indy is hypnotized and then comes out, there's like a good 40 minutes that is complete dead weight, and it's got the ceremony and stuff, but it's all really long, and it's got the bit where she's captured and that she keeps going up, and it's like,
and it's one of those things where it's like it kind of like and some of this stuff is good. I'm not saying that bad things, like the ceremony and stuff is good, but it's one of those where like if you look away from the screen for 30 seconds and then look back, you'll be like, what the fuck happened here? Where have they got? How did they get here?
Or the same thing is still happening, and it's like it just chops. The pacing is very choppy in that whole.
It's very
bit
weird.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, it's like thing is, it's not a super long film. It's what, like an hour 50 or something like that. It's like just shy of 2 hours. You probably could have cut about 20 minutes out of this, but like you say, a lot of it is good. It's just.
It's just kind of weirdly edited.
And I think as well, like I've probably only seen this film a couple of times before, and I think the story generally is quite weak. Like this is the first time I've ever really paid attention to like the stones, and they want the 5 stones and all that. I just kind of always thought of it as just like, there's some stuff going on, and because it's not really that important to the story.
Yeah, I think because it's just set in that one place, whereas the first one is like, oh, we want to go here. It's the Ark of the Covenant. The Nazis are here. Yeah. Oh, the Nazis got it. We got it. And then it's more like traditional plot. Yeah. Whereas this is more like
because you only find
it's just a temple run.
Literally, and like I don't know. I feel like the story is one of the weaker parts there.
Yeah, I think I agree.
And
I think another thing with this is like, although like the cart chase and the bridge and the ceremony and the Gallimar, I think when you think of like iconic Indiana Jones moments, you very rarely think of this film. Like you'll think of like the boulder run at the start of the Lost Ark, the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and with like, the melting face,
like the plane bit fight where he's fighting the guy with the propeller,
and then there's loads of bits
all the snake
in
bits
Last Crusade where which we'll get to, where you're like, oh yeah, this is, but in this it's like there's not many bits that are like people still reference.
Yeah.
Like you see it, like we've talked about how like, you know, things like The Simpsons and stuff parody Indiana Jones and stuff all the time. And whenever you see parodies of Indiana Jones, it's pretty much always Raiders of the Lost Ark, sometimes Last Crusade.
Yeah.
It's very rarely anything from this. And it's like, which isn't like a negative. Most films don't have iconic moments, but when you're in a trilogy full of so many iconic moments, it's kind of sticks out like a sore thumb as one that doesn't have that.
It does suffer a lot of the problems of the classic sequel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's not quite as impressive. They try and go in a different direction. They redeem it, in my opinion, with the next one. But I think most people would agree.
I think one last positive, actually, before, it's just talking about Harrison Ford, because he is great in this. I've always thought that he's better in this than he is in Star Wars. I think,
I would agree.
I think Indiana Jones is a more fun character than Han Solo, even though I love Han Solo.
Han Solo,
and there's similar characters.
Much more one note, isn't he, Han Solo?
Yeah,
like I think we talked about how kind of fallible he is and how kind of shit he is at quite a lot of what he does action wise.
Yeah,
I think that element of like making mistakes and being like the underdog gives Harrison Ford much more to work with.
I think obviously it helps that he's the main character, but I think
true.
Harrison Ford I think he enjoys this way more than he enjoys. He's always openly been kind of anti-Star Wars, where he will always come back for another Indiana Jones film.
He's just like, he's so charismatic in these films as well.
Yeah.
Like he was just like on another level, genuinely. And like the looks in this as well, like the iconic that I didn't realize was from this, where he's got like the one shirt sleeve like off at the end, and he's got like the ragged shirt, and I think he's got a machete at one point, or there's a poster that he has a machete. It's just like, it's like a more intense battle worn look compared to the first one. He also he has the leather jacket at the end. Don't know where he was carrying that the whole time. He just gets that up there.
That's it. The looks, like all the different costumes throughout these films are great, and like Harrison Ford is a charismatic, good-looking guy that is a fantastic actor, and it's like I think that's why this film is still a good film, because like no matter how bad you write an Indiana Jones film, if you've got Harrison Ford doing his Indiana Jones stuff, it's still more than watchable and thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah. I'd agree. Yeah, I'm thinking ahead to the future at this point. Not the unreleased future. Just to see. I wonder how that'll stack up. But that's why we're here, isn't it? I did have one more thing to say before you get into kind of trivia bits, and I actually have a couple of trivia bits as well this time. But the food ceremony situation.
Is it a little racist?
It definitely is, and apparently the film was temporarily banned in India because of the kind of cultural depictions there. And there was also reports, I don't know how true this is, that some teachers in America started teaching that as Indian food because they'd seen it. But apparently, like when I've looked it up online, certain people have been defending it and said like the whole point is that something dodgy is going on at that castle, but then at the same time, like the people at that feast aren't necessarily involved in the stuff that's going on down below.
And they're trying to pretend that nothing's wrong.
So I don't think that's supposed to be it's quite a gross out film in a lot of ways, isn't it? But yeah, no, I don't buy that story there. It is a bit racist, isn't it? Yeah.
So I've got a couple of bits of trivia. The first one is for the bug chamber sequence, which we kind of touched on just now.
Yes.
Kate Capshaw was really covered in over 2,000 insects.
Right, yes, this is what I was thinking.
She took sedatives prior to the scene to get over her initial fear and claimed they definitely worked.
That's good.
So that probably helps. I wonder if you watched it back knowing that you could notice. And the other bit I got is the scene with the broken bridge proved a challenge, since they couldn't use stuntman for a dangerously long drop. Like they couldn't just drop people down.
Right, okay.
So it was solved by making 14 dummies to stand in for the guards. They contained a mechanism and batteries inside which could operate their leg and arm movements, like when they're falling.
They're falling. That's cool.
The dummies were fastened to the bridge with the mechanisms rigged to start work as soon as they were released from the bridge and ropes.
Nice.
This made the dummies look like they were really kicking and flailing as soon as the bridge is cut. I was like, for like a 2-second shot, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I never twigged that it was dummies, but I guess that makes sense. But yeah, that's quite cool. I don't know if they still do that now. I imagine they do with like a wiggling dummy.
Yeah, unless it's like Tom Cruise, who's just like, oh no, I'll just do it. No, you need to put real crocodiles down there. No, have them actually bite off my leg.
There's a couple of bits I got as well. So apparently the monkey brains was part of the thing that contributed it to getting a PG-13 rating. And apparently it was the first PG-13 film.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but apparently, according to the internet, that's true.
Interesting.
And also, there was we'll be talking about the third one next week. There was a proposed and written sequel called Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, which was written by Christopher Columbus, who has done lots of family-friendly films. And it kind of takes a little bit more of a family-friendly route. It starts in a Scottish castle where he's fighting a haunted suit of armor.
Right.
So a little bit different. And he ends up going to Africa and meeting sentient gorillas in a monkey kingdom.
Oh, God.
And they fight some Nazis, and the gorillas get into a tank wearing Nazi uniforms.
Oh, I feel like that's crossing a line.
Yeah, I think that's why they didn't go that far.
Yeah, I mean, these films do get silly, as we mentioned. And
but it's always
a fantastical world, but it's
towards the end, or the main thing. And there was also in that film, because we talked about last week that or last episode, whenever, I don't know when these are releasing in what order, but I'll know which order they're releasing. That his students were like flirting with him, and it was like on the cards at one point that he was going to maybe sleep with one of his students in an early draft. So in the proposed third film, he was sleeping with his teaching assistant. And there's a point where she wants to go on the adventure with him, and she threatens to kill herself with his whip if she doesn't take him. So I'm very glad they didn't go that direct route.
Yeah.
Decided to go the way that we will be talking about at some point.
Yes. So the only thing left to ask is, whether or not this got you more or less hyped for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Proj yes or proj no?
Yeah, I think it did. Proj yes. Yeah, I think this is probably the one I've seen the least, so it was nice to rewatch it, and I definitely enjoyed it more than I thought it would. So, what about yourself?
Yes. Also, proj yes. Like as we mentioned, it's noticeably weaker than the last one, but it's still fun, and it's just so fun watching this character on a new adventure.
Yeah,
So it's like, yeah, I can't wait to see what they've got in store for me next, sort of thing. So yeah, definitely proj yes.
Nice.
Let us know what you think, listeners. If you really love Temple of Doom, or if you think it's the shit one.
Yeah.
Get in contact with us. Apart from that, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.